Well, welcome once again. And today I am so happy to have Dr. Peggy Gleason with me here today. She has been a critical care nurse for over 4 decades, I believe it was. And with that, had a wealth of experience. And it led her into seeing that we do have a very sick society and went and studied. And one of the different things she studied was the psychology of eating, which I find very fascinating. Food eating, it's a necessity of life, but it also can move us in different ways. So I'm very happy you joined us here today, Peggy, and tell me a little bit more about that, your background there and what you led you to the psychology of eating. And you started also the professional women's wellness program.
Yes,
And
yes, yes. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here today. And a little bit about my background. I was a critical care nurse for over 4 decades. And during that time, I could see that we were really struggling here in the United States as far as health goes. And my curiosity led me to really study different modalities in all different parts of the globe, just to see what are we missing? How do we live? And of course, that brought me into integrative health coaching, which I became certified as a coach in that first. And working with all the different dimensions of well-being, from how we eat, how we move, how our intimacy, our finances, everything, right? But what really drew me in was eating, because it looked like when we look at all the dimensions and how one intersects the other, everything affects the other thing, right? We're just, if you don't eat right, do you sleep right? You don't move right. You don't think right. There's so many different things it affects in our well-being. So I decided to study the psychology of eating, which I just fell in love with the topic. And that's what I'm pretty much focusing on right now.
yeah, and that's being a health conscious person myself. And I found that too, that even like trying to find that fresh, nutritious food and how everything's all adulterated and there's so much stuff is put in, like additives and like sugars and all sorts of things. Even one time I went into a specialty coffee and tea shop that my husband wanted me to pick him up some coffee. And I thought, oh, I'll just pick up a nice herbal tea. Even there, I couldn't find, I just wanted that lovely flavor of some fresh herbs, and they had to
Yeah.
put natural flavors in it. So
It wasn't even real.
yeah, I grow a lot of my food, then I don't have to worry about all that,
Yes.
you know,
Oh my goodness.
nutrition and but too, like, I would read these books, the omnivore's diet. And it was
Hmm.
because really, I mean, we could eat all sorts of foods. Some people have food sensitivities, but and the modern world, we can have that access to food from all over the world. And I think that probably leads to a lot of the foods when they travel so far, they're losing
Yes.
nutrition and that. So that can add to it. But I don't know, it's such a big part of,
It is a very big part of, well, it's the main part of living, right?
yeah,
It's the main
sustain.
part of living. We nourish ourselves in many ways, not just with food, but with our thoughts and our feelings and everything, right? Um, but what was really more fascinating to me is because of my background in health, was when we eat. we have to realize we need to know why we're eating. That sounds sort of ridiculous to most people. So, but because I'm hungry. Well, why do you choose certain things, right? So, in my studies, of course, I saw a lot of health issues. Oh, endless health issues. And when you looked at what was going on with some of these health issues, it was a lot of it was either overindulging or eating the wrong things, or, the rate of obesity is sky high. What was going on? What's really going on with the person? And what I found is it's really about the behaviors around food, the thinking around food, the triggers, the patterns, all of that is involved in the way people eat. And that was why I was so drawn to study about it, because I thought, well, wow, that's kind of making sense, right? And like a lot of my clients come to me because they want to lose weight. Well, that's fine. Okay, we'll talk about it. But what they come to realize after working with me is that diets don't work, because it's not just the food you eat. It's the when, where, why, how, and it's all of it. It's all of it. It's like, for instance, when I've talked about why you eat. Well, you eat because you're hungry, or do you eat because you're stressed? Are you grabbing certain foods to soothe yourself? Because a lot of people use food for comfort, right? Or and that's a big thing, especially evening. I have programs on people that eat at night. It's called goodbye night bites, because they tend to just go crazy in the evening. So what's going on there? And sometimes it's loneliness, sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's anger. Your people are just angry. And yeah, because, when sad and anger are closely related, right? Sometimes we will want to act sad, so we act angry,
Oh, right. Yeah,
but,
showing.
but,
Yeah.
all these emotions have a lot to do with not only why we're eating, because we're trying to soothe ourselves, but what they choose to eat has a lot to do with it. Generally, people that eat because of emotional states, they'll either eat high fat, high sugar, high salt. Alcohol goes in there too. I mean, it's all part of the behavior. And when we look at um, people that sort of go off the rails, so to speak, with different foods, that's generally what they're looking for, something to just fill this big void, and
Boy.
they can't stop. And it's really, really hard for them. And, there's no judgment when people are working with me. There's no judgment, because they're, they don't understand how to stop it or how to change it. So we work really hard on what's going on underneath all of it. There's always something going on underneath, right? And, the where you eat, you know, and your metabolism. Oh my goodness. Like, how many people eat in the car today? Do you really think you're
Yeah.
digesting that food correctly? Because you know what? You're not.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, I always, huh?
you see at the gas stations, they have all that junk food.
Yep, yep, yep.
Like, and you see
And
people piling up with all this, like, "Mm."
exactly. It's where you eat, like, and the car thing is a really big one, because a lot of people are in a hurry. They want to eat on the run. I mean, I sadly, as a nurse, as a critical care nurse particularly, I was on the proverbial grab and go diet. You grabbed something, you shoved it in your mouth, and you go back to your patient. It was just the way, it was a survival mode. And it was the only way you could get through. So you talk about wacky digestion and, oh, forget it. That was, you talk to any nurse and ask them how their digestion is, and it's not pretty. Uh, there's also, you're not metabolizing well at all. In fact, what people don't realize is when you eat fast, you slow your metabolism. I mean, yeah, yeah. You slow your metabolism when you eat fast. You don't want to slow your, you want to have an even keeled metabolism. Because people think, oh, I'm eating fast, so my metabolism isn't fast. No, it's not. It's slowing down, which you really don't want to slow. You want it to be a robust, healthy metabolism. And we look at not only the speed in which you eat, which is really, really important. When you eat slow, you're able to digest all those wonderful nutrients. If you eat fast, you're missing it. You're not even getting the nourishment you should get, right?
And
So,
even being able to enjoy your food, like the
and
flavor,
you, exactly,
it's
exactly. And how many people that are listening or watching, have you ever had the experience where maybe you're eating in the car and you have like maybe a granola bar or something like that, and you're eating and you're watching the road, you're listening to the radio, and you're just doing all sorts of things, and you look down and you're like, wait, where'd it go? Did I drop it? Like you
gone.
didn't even realize you finished it. And it happens all the time. And it's comical when I'm thinking about it, but it's really something that happens. They forget, and also they forget what they ate. Oh, what did you eat for lunch? Let me think. Hmm. Because they don't slow down enough to just savor the flavors and the food and the aroma, you know?
Yeah.
And, mindful eating is something that I teach because it's not a simple thing. It's simple, but it's not easy because we have to change our own habits, right?
Yeah.
And it includes slowing down and being present. But the other thing is, we talk about where we're eating also. Um, I think about people that stand while they're eating. Again, not good for your digestion. You're not going to metabolize well. But also think about, and many people that are watching this may relate, but they stand in front of the refrigerator with the door open, thinking something magically is going to appear that they really want when it's not there. They will close that refrigerator and they'll open it up again, like to see, is there anything, like, do they really think something's going to magically appear? Same thing with the cupboard, right? So people have some really interesting habits when it comes around food. Um, and you look at when I talk about different scenarios, holiday foods, you know, do people go haywire around the holidays because it's the time to celebrate and there's all sorts of sweets and treats and all that. But it's almost like they give themselves permission to go haywire. Well, it only happens this time of year. And, January 1st is coming in and I'll start all over again. And they kind of burn themselves out just eating a lot of these processed high sugar, high fat foods. And, it's just a really tough thing around the holidays.
Well, I think too, with that high sugar and processed foods, like you're talking about the fridge and expecting something to pop out, but also like, kids or people say like, there's nothing to eat and the fridge will be full. But it's
And
like those cravings that we've got like for that sugar and like, yeah, no, maybe there's no sugary treats in there, but it's so something to do too with all that sugar and stuff that's added that it does build up those cravings and so how do you deal with
well, that's a good question because when you think about why do we crave sweets? The first sweet you have of the day is going to be the thing that triggers all the rest of the day's sugar cravings.
oh
Because when you think about just the physiology of insulin and the pancreas, I always say, think about insulin as little soldiers, right? When you eat, the pancreas sends out the soldiers of insulin to try to manage that food and whatnot. Well, what happens is sometimes when it's too much sugar, it releases too many of those army guys to beat up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need something else. Now you have low blood sugar, right? And you got to have something else quick, right? So it's sort of a vicious cycle. And I always say if people want to give up cravings, um, just try to, because cravings are something you have to work with. You have to be really look at why you're having a craving for certain things. But if you really want to stop the sweets, you got to start with maybe some really good protein and greens. Protein and greens is a great thing to have. And just try to stay away from the sweets. Even some of these fake sugars will give you the same response. So don't be doing that.
Yeah.
Don't go away, go get those terrible
Yeah.
Splendors and all that stuff. They're terrible for you, and they will do the same thing that sugar does. It'll make you hungry shortly after. But the cravings also, I mean, and that's a great question. People often say cravings. However, is it a craving or is it a quick fix to fix something else that's going on here?
Yeah.
And generally that's what it is. It's something's going on in your being, your emotions, your thinking. And I think that's really what's happening. Why are you searching through the house for something sweet?
Yeah.
What are you missing right now? And that's really where the psychology comes in, is to say, okay, so what are you trying to replace? And what are you thinking right now? People really have a lot of thoughts in their head when they're eating or grabbing stuff.
Or even
What's the
not,
emotion? Hmm?
or even not the thoughts when it's just unconsciously grabbing and
Well, that's true too. Yeah. What's really going on with the person? And I notice, especially when people are lonely, you find them reaching for things because they are lonely. So they want comfort, and they will grab things that give them comfort. Maybe it's that oatmeal cookie that reminds them of when they were young. There's all these little things. And what do we do with kids? Johnny scrapes his knees. What does mommy do? Oh, you want a cookie that'll make you feel better,
yeah,
right? We
or
knew this
reward
for
them with sweets in the school.
yeah, yeah, we did this for generations.
Crazy that the
And
reward.
when you think about it now,
Yeah.
pain, reward is something like that, right? So we have to look at all those different pieces of the puzzle. But yeah, there's a lot.
Going back to you said like, when people are lonely, that's a thing too. Like if you're living alone, it's very hard to be cooking when it's just yourself, hey? And no,
Hmm. Without a doubt, without a doubt. And I know more of the clients I've worked with that are living alone. They say, well, I don't cook for myself because that's pointless. So I always go out and grab a pre-made meal. And they do it all the time.
yeah,
And what I come back and suggest is, do you ever like to cook even once a week? Is there something that you enjoy? And then we walk through some ideas of what could you make much a lot of and freeze, portion it out. And soups are always a safe bet for sure. Um, and yeah, there's just so much more underneath why we eat, how we eat, when we eat. There's a lot more to it.
whole world. It's a whole world.
Big world. It's your behaviors. You know,
And
how
also,
many, yeah, like how many people are closet eaters?
yes. Yeah.
Shame. It's all about shame, right? So you go into that whole, unearth all of that. There's a lot of shame with eating. Why do they want an extra piece of dessert. So what they'll do is they'll go in the kitchen later after it's taken off the table and, kind of cut another corner of the cake and kind of shove it in their mouth, right? But
Quickly eating it, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let me have a little piece.
So you're starting out. I just seen in an email you were starting out a membership site. Was
Yes, yes. We are doing that. I'm opening my vault for many years of different courses that I've taught. A lot of it is actually towards this. For instance, we have there's a book that I recently put out called Is the Lack of Sleep Making You Fat? And that what that's about is how important sleep is when you're looking at your metabolism. Because if you don't get enough sleep, you're kind of going to wreck your metabolism because not only that, but there's different hormones at night. You have your ghrelin and your leptin. And when those are on imbalance because of lack of sleep, you're probably going to eat all the time. You're just hungry. And
oh,
we see this a lot with night workers. And I had worked night shift as a nurse for a long time. And I would watch people, watch a lot of nurses. They were eating all night long to stay awake,
wake. Oh,
right? So those are different things that come up. So there's that. We have a few books in there and several courses that like I said, opening the vault to share with everybody. And it's going to be a monthly membership, and they'll still get me to talk with them once a month, um, do a Q&A or a hot seat or whatever they want every month, so that we'll get that interaction in person.
so where would they find you? How could they find that
Well,
course?
I will make sure you have the link for everyone, and we are running a special only in November.
Ooh,
So if people want to get in early, you will be able to have a membership for only $47 a month, which is really, really good because after November, it will be going up. But we did want to make it a special offer.
oh, nice, nice. And other ways for them to contact you?
Absolutely. I will make sure there's a lot of different links in the show notes. I'm sure you have in below your
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah.
And I'll make sure you have the links to um, access whatever it is that I have out there because we have a podcast.
Yes.
We have Professional Women's Wellness Podcast, and you can subscribe to that as well. And we have all different kinds of guests on there. It's not just all about eating; it's all different kinds of wellness experts, and I love interviewing people. So you get to meet a lot of different people.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I love it. And I love that you came with here on the Gardening Grandma and Friend show to share with us. I sure appreciate, I learned lots and I'm sure others will too.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I so appreciate your time to bring me here. Thank you.